All right, brothers and sisters, welcome to the last dispensation. I am your host, Troy Abels, and I'm with Kwaku L once again for the third time.
Hello.
How you doing, Kwaku?
Very good.
And on board also is Cardin Ellis with Midnight Mormons. Is that Midnight Mormon or Midnight Mormon? Oh, I see. Behind
with the S.
Brad Whitbeck there.
There we go.
And I wasn't expecting this, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to keep up intellectually with these guys. I hope I can.
You'll be fine.
I did bring some ammunition with me. I don't know if I'm going to be able to use it all because Kwaku is in the house.
No.
And here we go. First of all, I'd like to ask you what you guys thought of the Jeffrey R. Holland talk.
Yeah.
Who's
anyone?
taking it? Who's taking it?
I think that one, Quaker. You wanna go for the starters?
Yeah. I mean, to start off, I think since 2015 we've seen a major revolution. Right. Things have changed so much culturally in society. I mean, when I was in middle school, elementary school, when Obama was running for president for his first term, he was against gay marriage. Both he and Hillary Clinton were initially against gay marriage, right? So even in our lifetime, one of the most celebrated presidents started off against gay marriage. By 2015, we have gay marriage legalized, and then by 2018, we have the trans movement legitimized by the rest of the country, right? Like I say, a lot of people in the country. So things have moved so fast. And I do kind of think that those people the people on the left side of the aisle should be a little more charitable toward those on the right side of the aisle, especially toward 85-year-old, religious leaders from Cedar City, Utah farmland, right? So, he may not have said everything that the, left-leaning LGBTQ members of the church wanted him to say. He may not have said it in the right tone, but, I mean, 7 years ago, transgenderism was considered something that everybody scoffed at and was mocking, and now it's seen as something legitimate. And, I think they're asking people to run far faster than they ever thought they would even be skipping. Does that make sense? Does this make sense to you?
Yeah.
So I think people really got up in arms about it, but he was trying to be as kind as possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's Jeffrey R. Holland. He's a very nice man. He's a very nice apostle. Painting him like he's Adolf Hitler for an English major using an allegory that includes a musket, which isn't even a weapon people use anymore, and they're trying to make him out to be some complete monster, all because he didn't use the correct nomenclature that nobody even knows if what they're saying is politically correct yet, because everything is changing so fast.
Yeah.
It's like people think they're on board with what's happening, but they're actually on board with what happened in 2017, and now we're in 2021 and it's gone. So I don't even know all the colors on the LGBT flag. I can't, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know if
I know four
anyone
of them,
does. Which flag, though?
And now they've got the
there's a
arrow
ton
on
of
it.
different flag options.
There's so many.
So I think it's really, really difficult to keep up with exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I think even if you did 100%, give it a year and it will be different. So I think you're right that there needs to be a little bit more charitability. Is that a word? Can I say that? Charity?
There needs to be a little bit more charity. Yeah.
There needs to be a little bit more charity between every side, I think. I think that
No, but come on, honestly, in this example, do you think, quote, our side has been lacking in any kind of charity?
I don't think so.
You literally have a leader of the Mormon church, one of the most influential men of the past 50 years in Mormonism, crying in front of all of the administrators and professors of the most prestigious church university, begging and pleading with them that they do the best to make all of our LGBTQ brothers feel welcome, that they make them feel loved, and that they defend the policies and the doctrines of the church and the revelations of prophets with as much zeal as they would study and defend any other truthful topic.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally, with tears in his eyes, says, we have spent hours and hours and days deliberating how we can better accommodate these people. I don't see how, short of maybe one by one hugging every member of the church, he could have possibly bent over any farther backwards. And to say that it's
so
both sides is absolute intellectual just laziness. And I see
or
it
you're
online.
putting words in my mouth. Like,
no, I'm sorry. I'm not specifically saying you, but all the time, whenever these controversies happen, people try and say like, well, I think both sides have lessons to learn. And that kind of sets up this narrative that like, okay, both parties did wrong here. No, I don't think Holland did anything wrong.
Yeah. And I'm actually of a pretty similar opinion to you, Carden. I don't think that he did anything
and he's been
wrong.
bothering me lately. So,
I think that he was giving the speech to the BYU faculty and staff. And I think if you have a basis in your head of thinking about who he's talking to and you think about his audience as he's giving this address, that really changes things.
Yeah.
I think.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Just if he were to give this exact same address like to the LGBTQ community and he was like talking at them, I think some things were interpreted that way that I don't think he meant. Like when he talked about the valedictorian student, he said that we allowed a valedictorian to do what he did, not that this valedictorian was a bad person, right? And I think it's very easy to take that as a personal attack when really I think he was censuring the dean who approved the speech, right? Because it was an approved speech.
And that's I have to amend my first comment where I say I don't think he did anything wrong. The church has to hire a leftist psychopath to approve everything they're about to say. Like they just need to go to the gender studies department of the University of Utah and get like the most woke person and put them on payroll for $80 an hour. Because trust me, all the socialists become big time capitalists when there's a paycheck involved. All right. And then just say, hey, read every one of our speeches. Just like here in Hollywood, if you're working on The Mandalorian, you have 4 hours to go in and read the entire script because you ain't taking a paper copy. You have to leave your cell phone at the door. Nobody's getting a copy of what The Mandalorian next episode's going to do. Right. So I would have them read every speech these guys were going to say and then just highlight how whatever could be misinterpreted is going to be misinterpreted.
And
that's how they get their paycheck.
It's a diversity reader. That's like an industry thing now where you have people read it to tell people how it's going to be taken. I don't think that's the right solution though.
Well, but either way, I'm just saying the only thing where I thought it was inartful was it could be easily misconstrued by the most cynical of people looking to harm him, that he was calling out Matt Easton, when in reality he wasn't. If you actually look at his comments outside of the edited clips you see on YouTube, you realize he was trying to say, look, as an institution, we need to focus on the institutional graduation, not on the individualism of the actual speaker.
Right. It wasn't anything against, it wasn't a pro and con thing.
Mm-hmm.
It was more about, individualism and collectivism. And also one of the things that I'm hearing rhetorically from the right is that he was a Johnny come lately, or that this wasn't soon enough,
interesting,
as opposed to the other side.
So the thing I find funny about that is like he's been saying the same thing the whole time.
Yeah, soon enough for what?
Yeah, like this has been the exact same message for a very, very long time. Like, are they talking about like
cleaning house, so to
with
speak,
BYU?
At BYU, like maybe doing something a little bit more.
Well, I guess maybe in like a public
I don't know. I don't
speech.
go to BYU.
Getting rid of apostate professors that
I'm
unironically say the Book of Mormon is inspired narrative fiction. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, get rid of that. Yeah.
So if I can chime in,
but not like students.
I think
no.
So I think we've seen a cultural revolution that is just soared off really fast. Okay, and the reality is people are trying to keep up, but people of different religious backgrounds will only keep up and then they'll stop so far. So when I remove myself from being LDS and just look at this situation, I have to say, okay, is this actually surprising that an 85-year-old man from the farmlands of Cedar City, Utah, is not waving around a rainbow flag? That's the least surprising thing ever. That would be like if I go to a Presbyterian church and I'm like, you mean you guys are not down with the Journal of Discourses? Of course they're not. Like, it's a very obvious thing. So there is a level in which certain things are just not that shocking. It's kind of like when CNN back in 2016 every week would be like, can you believe Donald Trump said this? And we were like, yeah, I can. Yeah, I mean, of course I can believe it.
It was expected, right?
So
Yeah.
I mean, there is a little bit of, I think, like, outrage. I'm not sure how real the outrage is in terms of authenticity, or is it outrage that's being put online for a specific narrative? And what the narrative we're seeing is, gone are their days of I just want to be able to be legally married to my spouse, because I think probably
I just want hospital visitation rights.
Yeah.
I just want to be able to receive out of probate court my husband's house. Like, that's not what we're talking about here.
And so, I mean, I think most people are reasonable in saying, yeah, I don't think that the government should tell you who you can and can't marry, right? And all those things. But now it seems to be the narrative has progressed from what it was 2015, and now it is, your specific sealing ceremony in your temple needs to be changed and accommodated to allow 2 men or 2 women to be married and sealed together by the LDS priesthood. And that seems to, and if we don't do that, then that means the institution is inherently a bad institution, and the people who belong to the institution are inherently bad people. This is what I'm seeing, and I mean, I have a couple thoughts about this, and my first thought is, one, we perhaps seminary teachers and church correlation have a little bit of fault here, because I don't think we've taught the doctrine of sealing very well. When we decided to try to be like all the other Christian churches, we took away the uniqueness of what we really believe, and we've kind of dumbed it down to sealing is just a temple wedding. And if you're just taught that sealing is just a temple wedding, and Bill and Bob want to get sealed in the temple, and you say, no, sorry, you're one of those gays, it can seem a little mean. But when you explain it the way Orson Pratt did and the early prophets, that we believe God is a human being, the soul is the spirit and the body together, and your eternal existence is very physical and very spiritual, 50-50. So when you are sealed to somebody, that sealing process enables you to become a god, and godhood is the union of 2. And you, in that godhood, have to create spirit children, and that is also a physical act. People get uncomfortable. It's like when you figured out your parents had sex for the first time, and you're like, no! I mean, come on. Yes, okay, yes, there's sex in heaven. Hate to break it to you. We believe it, okay? Actually, I don't hate to break. I've waited this long, okay? There better be, all right? That's all I'm going to say. So, if we believe that and we say, look, we believe the sealing ceremony is specifically about creating gods. And in what Joseph Smith restored in the Mormon movement, godhood exists in the marriage of a man and a woman specifically so they can physically create souls, which is a spirit and body together, and there's a biological reality to the continuation of godhood. And since 2 men biologically cannot create children, we cannot seal them in the temple, because if we did, how cruel would that be? If we put them in the sealing ceremony, seal them together, and then in the next life they say, "Oh, well, will I be able to? Now I'm a part of the Godhead," and they say, "There's still you can't create spirit children. There's still the biological reality to godhood that Joseph Smith emphasized and that the early prophets emphasized." So we view God differently than other Christians, and since we haven't made that explicitly clear, and we haven't made the sealing ceremony explicitly clear that there is a biological reality to it, all it's doing is hurting people's feelings. So I think this goes way back when to one generation, I'm not going to name who, the Oomers, who decided, let's be like other Christians, let's not be clear with what we believe, let's add confusion, and now you've got gay members of the church wondering why they can't be married because we haven't told them what the dang ceremony truly is, because we don't want to be seen as weird. I mean...
Amen.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's a tough act to follow, last dispensation guy. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of a mic drop. Go for it, bro.
I think it's always been, where the critics come out of the woodwork, and we knew that they were going to anyway. I mean, it was inevitable. When I was listening to the speech, well, actually, my wife and I were watching it. It's in our minds. We know that we're going to see something a day, 24 hours later, where they're tearing down Elder Holland, and it's the little finite things that they pray about, that they ponder, that they things that we don't even know. We don't know what they do. We don't know what they talk about in their meetings, and the pain and the sorrow that they feel. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, and I think it was actually touching that he shared that, and it really bothers me when I see people saying like, "Oh, save your alligator tears, President Holland." I'm like, what? Why would you judge this man?
You're literally assigning dirty motives, which is like liberal don't break rule number one.
Yeah, and like
all of these therapists that are coming out of the Wasatch Front, Twitter sphere, talking about how advocacy is allyship or whatever, all these little slogans that they're giving to virtue signal. It's like, you should know as a therapist that you don't assign people dirty motives. You will never have a healthy human relationship if you just keep going through assigning people dirty motives. So stop doing it to the leadership of your faith.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the biggest things that is necessary in the fallout of this. Because with Elder Holland, he kind of told us his motives over the pulpit, and we either get to believe him or not. And then we as members and who are not struggling with the LGBT, the way that Elder Holland phrased it was the LGBT challenge, which I think some people were also offended by. But I think he was talking about how challenging it can be to be an LGBT Latter-day Saint,
Okay, no,
right?
You don't get to say, be nice to me or I'll kill myself, and then not admit that it's a challenge.
I agree with you.
We have to demand some kind of consistency out of this, or else it's no longer an argument, but just a beatdown session.
Yeah, but I'm not seeing anyone say, be nice to me or I'll kill myself.
Literally in my feed yesterday, it was nothing but a bunch of links to the Trevor Project and a bunch of, reach out to me if you need to talk.
But there's an important difference there, Carden. Wait for a second. Okay. You're seeing people say, be nicer or other people will kill themselves, right? They're not saying, or I will kill myself. They're saying other people will kill themselves. And I think there's an important rhetorical difference there.
No, they're standing on the graves of tragedies and then pushing their political agendas through a religious corridor using the most cynical leverage I've ever seen in my life. And I think there are things you tolerate in arguments and there are things you don't. Okay? There's rules of war. Like the Geneva Convention, we all agree, okay, no more mustard gas. Mustard gas is just too toxic. Somewhere in this culture war, we have to say as a society, some things are too toxic and they're off limits. For me, I never go after another public figure's family. You've never seen me make fun of John DeLynne's family. You've never seen me make fun of his wife, his kids, his this, his that, because there's some things that I just think are off limits in this war of ideas. For them, there is not. They will literally accuse you of the unspeakable. Words I cannot say because this will be broadcast on YouTube and we will get a strike. But those come across all of the feeds of every one of these ex-Mormon, anti-Mormons every single day. And I'm sorry, in the Geneva Convention of online war of ideas, they are breaking the rules, they are toxic, and they need to stop, and it needs to be not tolerated anymore.
And I think that the way to get there is to help them understand what it is that they're doing, right? I think the majority of these posts that I'm seeing are motivated by people trying to be compassionate, right? But then they're following...
Maybe the reposters.
Yeah, exactly. The reposters.
The people that are driving... There's a difference between leadership and laymen. Yes, of course.
Yeah, and I think that we need to be careful of that because when we criticize the leadership and the laymen have been the people reposting things, sometimes they take that personally, right? And then we just have a deeper difficulty in getting everyone on the same page later, right?
Okay, well, this is why you're going to be apostle and not me.
I mean... Okay, so what's kind of interesting to me is, and maybe because I'm from Texas and I'm a Southerner, and the gay people I knew in high school were also Texas Southerners, but they were tough. And I get to Utah, and all I'm seeing is, insert vagueness here. If the church doesn't change its doctrine, meaning change its ceremony that you already said was Freemasonic and weird. You know what I mean? If the church doesn't change this ceremony, this very specific niche esoteric ceremony about becoming a god in the next life that also involves marriage and sex, if you do not change this ceremony, then people will kill themselves. The gay people I grew up with were way tougher than that. Like isn't it almost insulting that they're saying like, hey, this ceremony in that building that only a quarter of the 2% of the people who actually have subscribed to that religion, and then of that quarter, only 1/4 of that quarter will go into that ceremony. If you do not change that ceremony specifically, then all these people will kill themselves. I don't believe that's true. I do not believe that's true. And also, let me say, there's been a lot of connections with race in Utah. And, people said, well, the church had the 1978 revelation and allowed black men to hold the priesthood. Is this the same thing as that? Not once in the past couple of years, as BLM and all that stuff has happened, have I heard one black person say, stop police brutality or I will kill myself. Nor have I heard any white person say, we must stop this or the black people will kill themselves. Why is it that all these Utah journalists just go stand on the graves of dead LGBT kids and say, you better change this doctrine and change your scriptures or Billy and Sally will kill themselves? To me, that just seems insulting not only to LGBTQ people, insulting to anybody. It's just it's such a cynical look at society and such a push of weakness.
And I would say it's beyond insulting. It's actually damaging. Because I think you could have had a ton of people just ignore that this talk ever even happened. But now you have people sharing this as though it's a reasonable response for them to think that suicidal ideation is a reasonable response to an old man telling all of these people at BYU that they need to be doing better at defending their faith.
Plus, it's almost like you're almost promoting that ideation by constantly referencing it as a coping mechanism that I don't think would come naturally if it were not so overrepresented as a suggestion in social media.
It's also fake. It's fake. They never share stats. This is going back to 2016. Every single time some grifting ex-Mormon journalist who wants to make money off of ex-Mormons who are going through emotional pain from leaving the church, they always say, all these gay kids are killing themselves right now. They never provide stats. Every single time someone's looked into those stats, they don't show up. It is completely fake. It's false.
Okay, it's not that there's not any suicides happening. It's that there's many cases where they've misrepresented data that was not specific. For example, there was the year, about 5 years ago, where
that's what I'm saying.
The amount of suicides doubled, right? And they immediately blamed it on the policy of exclusion, as they called it, and said, look, this is perfect evidence, until you actually read the study and you found out they never self-reported sexual orientation. Okay. They didn't self-report half of the other data that shows up in all of the other reports. And some of these children, dare I say, that were self-deleting, and I have to use that term because this will probably get shown on YouTube, were as young as 5th graders. Prepubescents who couldn't report a sexual orientation if they wanted to. And I'm sorry, but state of Utah, if you have 5th graders deciding to take their own lives that are prepubescents, you've got a much bigger problem on your hands that you need to start addressing here. And we all need to start being intellectually honest and figure out what it is. And instead of laughing at people that might say, could it be the elevation? We actually maybe should start looking into that. Instead of laughing at people that saying, could it be the fact that, people in Oregon have higher depression levels because there's less sun? And is it like, maybe we need more PE outside? I mean, I'm literally just spitballing here, but they stand on the graves of these kids and they absolutely shove a political agenda of you better pass AB 156723 or else you're a bad person. And it's all run by guilt. And as a liberal, I am the biggest 1990s liberal you will ever meet. Okay. I don't know a single person in my ward that wasn't for the Domestic Partnerships Act of California. I don't know a single person in my ward that thought, oh yeah, gay people shouldn't be able to go visit their partners in hospitals. I don't know a single Mormon that thinks that way. And anybody that says, oh, we're a conservative religion, I laugh at them because I'm like, dude, we give up the mic on the first Sunday of every month for an open mic session where every person is regarded as equal. We are the closest thing to intellectual socialists as you can get one Sunday every month. While everybody else is making money off of their grift, all right, other churches included, we're straight out passing up the mic. And yeah, we might be socially conservative in many regards, such as like traditional marriage, okay, but we are the most fiscally liberal people out there. You go look at the donations of any one of these ex-Mormon podcasting grifters, and they still have yet to donate an equivalent of the 10% that they used to pay for tithing that the church doesn't need, and instead ends up becoming the largest provider of clothing to the third world. So I've just reached a point, me personally, where it's like, this is unsustainable. Like, we can have a conversation when it is indeed a conversation. But when you come out and say that I am no longer qualified as a participant in this conversation because I want to delete other people with a muzzle-loaded black powder weapon from 250 years ago, instead of recognizing and being intellectually honest, the metaphor that it was, they could have just as easily said he was advocating for violence with rusty trowels. And if we're going to be this intellectually dishonest, you know, every person that was saying Jeffrey R. Holland was advocating for violence now needs to protest Hamilton. Because in Hamilton, they had muskets. And was Hamilton literally suggesting widespread assassination of all political leaders from the 1800s? Like literally, if we are going to say that Jeffrey R. Holland was suggesting violence against gay members of the church, we literally need to march down to the Pantages Theater and protest Hamilton as the violent outburst of political leadership that it really is. But we're not going to do that, and nor am I advocating for that, those who want to clip this, okay? We're not going to do that because all of us here know that that was a metaphorical musical that blended the cool fusion of modern music with the old school wigness of 1770s, fashion. We all know that Jeffrey R. Holland was using a metaphor of the modern Minuteman with the religious war of ideas. That's it.
And this is where I think the problem lies. Because we know that, but I think people who are being told otherwise, without having read his speech or with reading his speech after, but having the idea implanted that he's calling for violence against them, that's the thing that I think is the bigger problem. You have people telling people in the LGBTQ community, hey, you have an apostle calling for violence against you. Look at what he said, right? And saying this sort of thing and weaponizing their fear against the church. Yeah. And I think that that's such a horrible, horrible thing for them to be doing. And I really think the only way for us to try to combat that is the real problem here isn't even what Holland said. It's the whole conversation that's happening after. And I think if we did a better job of trying to love our neighbors and help anybody that we know who's LGBTQ know that we love them and care about them and that we would never point a musket at them ever. The more they know that, the less likely they are to believe when some grifter comes along saying, hey, this is what is being said by LDS apostles.
And I agree. But I think it's only a small checkbox.
Yes.
Because, the reality is the same people I'm seeing post about, hey, Elder Holland said to go point a musket at gay people, and he didn't. But those people saying that, they're also saying, well, also Joseph Smith was a polygamist, and your church banned black people, and you guys did this. You've done so many bad things. Most of those people don't believe the church is true anyway. If we were tomorrow, if the prophet said, okay, we're going to fundamentally, everyone mail back your scriptures. We're going to rip out these pages from the New Testament and from the Doctrine and Covenants, and we're going to change the doctrine completely of the church and change the scriptures of the church and to make it gay marriage inclusive. Okay, if that happened tomorrow, that would not fix anything. Because then you still have the issue of, okay, well, every single thing Brigham Young said about race, that needs to be taken off the record too. So we'd have to go and cleanse our church history of things, right? And then after that, what? Okay, well, Joseph Smith and his wives. Okay, well, now every descendant of Joseph Smith, let's give money to because of the pain of his wife. Like, you can't appease the people who ultimately don't want the church to exist. And here's where it gets scary. if you start defining an entire people by their most controversial or worst traits, you dehumanize them. And what follows is you start putting people in camps. People think that's hyperbolic. I'm not being hyperbolic. We've seen that happen throughout history countless times. I'm saying that there is such a growing amount of resentment towards Mormons in Utah. It's terrifying because they're using language like, look what they did to you. They lied to you about their history. They lied to you about your sexuality. They lied to you about chastity. They ruined your life. They manipulated you. They manipulated you. They manipulated you. They lied to you. They're trying to hurt you. And then they want your friends to kill themselves. They want your friends to kill themselves. They want you to kill yourself. Remember that time you were really, really depressed? That was the church's fault. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? How much more of this crazy media push of Mormons are bad, and they want to harm you, will it take before somebody takes a gun to BYU campus or a chapel or a temple? We've seen things like this happen throughout history over and over, and I can't help but be terrified when I see these Dylan types and these Mike Norton types and these Nuance Ho types and all these anti-Mormon social media profiles who want nothing but to make people angry and upset at the church, and all it takes is one person jacked up on some serotonin reuptake inhibitors to do something bad. And so by that time, it's going to say, well, who has the musket now? And so we need to understand that, yes, let's be nice to gay people. Let's not have anyone take away their constitutional rights. And let's make sure all of our friends and family are still invited to Thanksgiving dinner. And we're still kind and we can still hang out and we can still have a good time like I have with all my gay friends right now. When I can invite my friend Henry, who is gay as a rainbow, to come a hot tub with the boys, you know what I'm saying, in our apartment hot tub, and everything is chill and all those guys have the priesthood and nobody cares. It's a pretty good society. But when it comes to them saying, Henry, you cannot talk to those people because they hate you and your friends should shun them, and guess what, the church is evil, that means we're going to have major issues. In the satanic anti-Mormon social media profile people who want violence, who want bad things, they want there to be division, and they are counting on standing on the graves of LGBT people for that division to happen.
And, you know, these boomer and Gen Xer parents who are trying to virtue signal and say that, oh, they're fighting on the behalf of, you know, their kids, or they're this or they're that. Every once in a while, I do hear a heartbreaking story of a guy that needs to be seriously put in his place. And I commend those parents that are defending their children in those specific situations. Okay. At the same time, we also need to understand as a society that Christianity and Mormonism at large, okay, the body of Christ et al, is the single biggest defense of our gay and LGBTQ children out there. Mm-hmm. It is only in the Christian West where we think that you have an unconditional value as a child of God and are an equal participant in God's glory, someone who is going to inherit mansions in heaven regardless of your status here on earth. Yet all of these woke scolds that keep going after the church and going after its membership, trying to pick apart little words. They don't refute scripture, they fulfill scripture. When Isaiah says they will be accusers and you will be found a bad person for a word, all right? Mm-hmm. They're fulfilling scripture, and they are literally, in my opinion, assigning a grievous, not a death warrant, but a tragedy to future generations, because all of these woke scolds and secularists don't realize what secular societies do to LGBTQ people. Show me a secular society. Show me a communist regime in the 19th century that outlawed religion, what they did to gays. Show me a secular society in which gays prosper more than they do in America. I mean, if America falls, if the general Judeo-Christian values of your unconditional worth as a child of God go away, who's taken over? Russia? You seen what Russia does to its gay people? I have donated. See, what's funny is people don't realize this. I've donated to gay charities. Go look up the Rainbow Road. The Rainbow Road is literally right now smuggling unnamed homosexuals out of Russia who have death warrants, either from the mafia or the state-sanctioned squads they got out of there because of their sexual orientation. Go look them up and donate them. They bring them here to the United States of America or to other countries that have good sanctuary policies for that kind of thing, so they have safe passage to a place where they can hide. I'm also a member of the Pink Pistols. I do not espouse this idea that, oh, I need to defend my gay friends because they can't handle a thing because they're so weak. No. If you feel, and look at me right now, mano to mano, if there is a single person in this audience that feels like you are vulnerable to physical violence from anybody because of your sexual orientation, I will give you free handgun classes, and I will hook you up with gun store owners that give discounts to Pink Pistols. All right? It's literally a gay rights organization that teaches LGBTQ member how to use guns.
How to use a musket, Corden.
Yeah, how to use a musket.
How to use a
musket. You know? And so it's like, just because I have a different coping mechanism for protecting the vulnerable minorities in our society doesn't mean that I'm a bigot. And just because I don't say, yeah, you're right, we need to outlaw the 501c3 status of the church and secularize everything, doesn't mean that I want to see violence perpetrated upon our most vulnerable minorities.
Yeah.
Okay, so you need to quit this crap, or else you're reaching a point where if there is no more social fabric, what do we parachute to the ground on? If the social fabric is torn, how do we catch the suicide guy that jumps off of the roof? I mean, there's a symbolism here. You want to talk suicide? What did they always catch people in the 30s with that were jumping off the buildings in the Depression? The big piece of fabric.
Yeah.
Our social fabric. Our society was expected to step forward and save that person. If that social fabric is torn, not because of us, but because of you, what are we going to save these people with?
You know, it's also interesting. When I lived in San Francisco, I saw a crazy amount of homeless people that were transgender. And in California, the homeless issue is sky high. A lot of LGBT homeless people. And I just can't help but think, isn't it really funny that secular atheistic California will not take care of its gay homeless people?
And not funny, you mean ironic, I believe you meant to say.
No, not haha. Yeah, no, it's sad, right? It's sad.
Yeah.
And these religious states are doing a better job of doing it than the secular states. And when they tell you, hey, those churches hate you, so don't go live in those places, they don't have anything better to offer. They only have worse things to offer. How can you say that the number 2 gayest city in the country, Salt Lake City, which is also the Mormon capital of the country, how can you say these two, like, the Mormons hate gay people? I don't see how it's possible. So
yeah, I think it all stems
that would
from...
be like saying Southern Baptists hate barbecue. Sorry, it isn't true. Have you been to a Southern Baptist church in Alabama? They will serve barbecue right after.
Well, they're stealing words. They get completely trying to redefine love, and they've completely tried to redefine hate.
There we go. Because if you disagree with someone even a little bit, that means you hate them. If you're saying, hey, we love you and we think that you're awesome, but we aren't changing our temple ceremonies, that equals somehow hatred. I don't understand that. I think that also is not the way people think about it either. And that if they did recognize, oh, yeah, no, they really do care about me. They do think I'm awesome. They will spend time with me and treat me exactly the same as every other person they know. They just have a religious ritual that is going to remain the same. Like, I think if they thought about it that way, there'd be a lot less pain involved.
Well, and the irony is that emotional manipulation of saying you need to change sincerely held religious beliefs that go down to your core, okay, or else you do not love me, is no different than a jerk abusive father saying to his gay son, you need to go out and marry a female and provide me with grandchildren, or else I don't think you love me.
Yeah, that would be manipulative, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's just one big, fat, heinous emotional manipulation that if I heard one of my friends was doing to their son, then there might be a musket or a smack. Who was the guy that got in trouble saying he'd smack? It was the guy that always talked like this that I couldn't stand.
Boyd K. Packer.
Boyd K. Packer?
Yeah. Okay. He would get a Boyd K. Packer smack in the face, all right? If I find out that one of my friends was saying that to one of his homosexual children, he'd get a Boyd K. Packer smack in the face.
Well, you know what's interesting? It's if I want to have this conversation about, temple sealing ceremony in regard to gay individuals with believing gay members.
Yeah.
Because what I'm finding online is you have people who've never been LDS or way, way, way ex-LDS who are saying, the church, your religion isn't true anyways, just change the ceremony to make me happy.
Oh, they're out there, but they get absolutely downvoted on subreddits.
Yeah.
Like, they will respond. Like, they will literally go in there and respond when somebody says, can we just have a conversation about the latest X, Y, and Z in the church manual, or that so-and-so gave in a talk, or this comment that I heard during mutual? And they'll respond. They'll say, yeah, have a conversation, right? If they're foolish enough to put their cell phone on there, they automatically just get lambasted by the subreddit minions that came after you, you know, or they get doxxed, or they just plain old get downvoted into oblivion. So I've completely lost
I'm saying,
all respect for anybody saying, we
more
just
that
want to start
people,
a conversation.
Well, no, I'm saying more that if you don't believe in our doctrine in our church, why are you counseling people as to how to change the doctrine of their church?
Yeah.
Well, they say, I grew up in it. I'm trying to save those that are still in it. That's their emotional justification.
I grew up Methodist. Do you think I'm going to go to the UMC and just look here? Look. The UMC theme for this year is
well,
just
you're just heartless.
No. I just yeah. It's also, but it's not honest to say, hey, if you say I believe Joseph Smith was a prophet, I believe the Book of Mormon, I believe Jesus is Christ, and I am gay, let's sit down and talk. I want to sit down and talk. If you say, yeah, I don't believe any of those things I used to, but you better change this anyway, it's like that. You can't just stand up.
Yeah,
I
at that
can't
point,
do that to a different Greek Orthodox. Change your ceremonies. What are you? I'm a Mormon. Shut up. That's what you know. What I'm saying? That's the appropriate action to me, is to tell me to shut up.
Like, what is the point when you've separated yourself from the community in that way? Like, I don't.
No. From the faith, from the believing aspect of the community.
That's what you're saying.
Because if you don't believe, how can you tell believers what to? If I do not subscribe to Greek Orthodoxy, if I go tell Greek Orthodox what they must do with their church, it's like, go away, go away, Kwaku.
And I think maybe that's part of the problem too, is that people have a hard time separating the faith from the community in the first place, because you have people who leave the church and then immediately say like, oh, hey, it's a cult, everyone in it is a brainwashed loser, and then they're like, oh, why don't my Mormon friends like me anymore? It's like, because you're calling us cultist, brainwashed losers. Like, you're saying
parents
that
who raised you, who love you, who paid for your college and bought you your first 2 cars.
Yeah,
calling them brainwashed, stupid losers. Yeah,
and you expect them to treat you exactly. You're somehow surprised when they're like, okay, I don't like this.
And nobody ever talks about the toxic relationship that's developed from wokeism. I have had women in my ward crying, asking me to reach out through social media to their own children and grandchildren who have sent them text messages saying, until you will renounce the church to me, or will renounce X political leader to me, or will announce this and that publicly, I'm not coming to Thanksgiving. In fact, I don't want to be around you.
I saw this horrific TikTok that made me sick, of this woman crying. By the way, filming her dad, saying, basically telling her dad to renounce God. She was ex-Mormon. She's saying, you need to like renounce God if you love me. And he's like, I can't do that. And she says, so you can't love me without God? And he says, no, because true love is godly. I can't love you without God. And she starts crying. And these are fake tears. She's recording her father. He was an elderly dude at this point, trying to manipulate an old man on camera to score some ex-Mormon points.
And
I've seen the most evil people I've ever met in the ex-Mormon community. And this is why you want to know, okay, what the video that just went viral of the kid pouring the water on the right south of BYU campus on the stairs next to Brick Oven going up. They had a rainbow Y painted, not painted, chalked on, right? Guy comes up with water or something, pouring it on there, and people are like, what are you doing? He says, FAGGOTS, go to hell. That's what he says, and he walks off.
Yeah, that was a rookie error.
Yeah.
Rookie error?
Really bad, right?
It's a little worse than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very bad thing
Well,
to do,
I mean,
okay?
rookie errors and like, who does that?
Yeah.
Even somebody that believed that unironically would have to be smart enough. Even the most cynical homophobe would be smart enough to not record that on social media. Like, what?
Yeah.
I hear these things. I'm like, I don't know what to say to those people either.
Yeah.
You know?
Love your neighbor.
Yeah.
Maybe.
It's like,
like, guys, chill out.
If you're 22 years old and a student at BYU, how in the 22 years of attending the Mormon church have you not figured out the first law is much like the second law?
Yep.
Love thy neighbor as thyself, or love God with all thy heart. And then the second one,
as
love
somebody who grew up with an iPhone, how do you know not to use a slur on camera? You're like, what are you, dumb? You know? So anyway, but that aside, what the thing is, whenever people get extremely divided and you draw lines in the sand and you say, okay, as of 2021, the dominant narrative for ex-Mormonism in regard to LGBT is you cannot be friends with, family with, or associate with gay people if you're Mormon, and we're going to say you hate us and we're going to hate you. when you push people into tribes like that, you're gonna get more people like that guy. That is always the same thing.
Yeah.
If once you say, hey, Mormon or ex-Mormon, I'm Mormon. Okay, then I hate you and you hate me. Well, I don't want to hate anyone. I'm going to say that you're a bigot and a piece of shiz if you believe in this Book of Mormon here. And unless you renounce this Book of Mormon here, I'm going to hate you. You're pushing people into tribes, and guess what? You're going to get more people like that guy. Extremism always, when you have extremism on one side and targeting another, that other side you're targeting will always become more extreme. So you're creating more of the people you're saying you don't want. This is exactly how you've got Black Lives Matter did this, right? You had normal people who were like, yeah, you know, when I was a teenager, the cops were really shizzy to me living in Mississippi. Yeah, I don't like a lot of cops. Not that crazy to not like government leaders, okay? We all have issues with politicians.
Name one guy that's like, yeah, the IRS, they're great guys.
But guess what?
When a guy with the IRS and his family.
Guess what? When you're a 12-year-old girl, 12-year-old little white girl, and your dad is a cop and he's the nicest guy ever, and you see people on TV saying if you see a cop, shoot him and beat the crap out of him and make sure he's dead. And guess what? You're probably gonna go, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of that. I don't like that group right there. And if the only black people you get exposed to because you live in a super white suburb are the black people on TV who say let's kill all the cops and kill all the white people, you're gonna go, what's wrong with black people? However, when you say this is exactly how it has to be, and you cannot mix these groups at all, and you will, and I'm not gonna allow anyone to meet this little white girl, then you're literally pushing her into an extremist corner. So, guess what? Exponent and by common consent and Dr. Julie Hanks and all those people, you are creating more Desnats by the more you try to push anybody who says, hey, I believe in my church and I'm proud of my family history and where I come from.
And not only are you creating more Desnats, but you're changing the definition of what that actually is to just, a normal suburban person who has black friends. A normal person who has gay friends. And the worst part is they go on and they watch these things. Click on Reddit right now. Nuance Ho literally called me a garbage dumpster fire of a person. And I could turn around with this same logic and say, she's threatening my life saying she wants to burn me in a dumpster fire. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. I could intellectually dishonestly do that. But I don't do that because not only do I feel like it cheapens me, okay, but I don't want to destroy what little social fabric there is between anybody that might think she's funny online and something we could at least all laugh at. Like when in that show Believer, where you had the Imagine Dragons lead singer and the Neon Trees lead singer both end up singing an old school LDS primary hymn. Though both are anti-Mormon now, okay, or special, whatever, however they want to identify themselves.
Tyler Glenn is Dan Reynolds. I wouldn't say he's
anti-Mormon. Yeah. I know he says he called himself different, but though they're not at the same level of activity as me, shall we say, okay? I like that I could join him in that primary song. And if the worst came to worst, and we all had to make it to the stake center because the Gaddy Anton robbers were on their way to steal all the food storage or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, if worst came to worst, and I don't know, China finally invaded, and it was us three in the trenches against them, all right, I like the fact that we could all sing that song and at least have that one common denominator in which we at least share our humanity. And if you start even taking that away, what do we do as a society? Yeah. These boomers that are allowing it to happen have never seen what happens when it does. They're rich, spoiled, post-war, wealthy people who have never seen political violence in their own countries. They've never seen factional violence in their own cities. They've never been to Afghanistan like our military soldiers have and seen what happens to gays. They've not been international businessmen that tried to open up businesses in China and were told, sorry, we don't hire those people here, okay? They've never been to South America and seen what happens when politicians literally leverage religion to start bloodshed in the streets with people that they want to defeat on election day. They've never seen this, yet they're trying to usher it in here. And it's up to us, those that have the experience, that have been overseas, that have been to other places, to say, no, you need to stop. Like, you need to stop. And no, both sides of this argument aren't right. You are wrong, and you need to stop.
Troy, do you know that this is what you're getting into when you you sent me over the Zoom link?
No, it's great. I love it.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, yeah.
I apologize for not talking that much.
No, you're
it's
good.
all
We're not giving you much room.
When
Sorry.
when Cardin gets in front of the mic, it's hard to. I see Brad all the
No,
time
I'm
here just
passionate
trying to
about
get
this.
in a sentence, and Cardin just so I have to yell my way in. So
Yeah, I've started
my-
to just be like, no. Go ahead.
This is gonna be good YouTube right here.
If it doesn't get taken down.
Yeah.
I know, right?
it's too niche. It's too niche of a subject to get taken down.
I
We're
think so.
talking
Yeah,
about,
just don't say musket too many times, right?
well, I don't know. And we're at COVID.
Can I
People
ask
heard
your guys'
masket a lot.
opinion
It's
on
probably,
something?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead.
So about 5 days ago, I made a video about the vaccine, right? And it was about the prophet and his.
Now it is
the first
getting taken
presidency.
down.
I'll save it. Don't
Not
worry.
necessarily. It depends. We don't have to say the V word that much, I guess. I don't know. How would you substitute for that? But
On YouTube, it's called The Jab.
Oh my gosh.
right.
Yeah.
Okay, the jab. That's right. That's what I used. I used the term the jab.
Yeah.
I'll just bleep out that other part. But all I did was go on there, and I didn't know, and I don't know where your guys' mindset is on this either. But my feeling and the spirit that I felt was that we should pray about it. And if we haven't prayed about the new message that the first presidency has had or has come out with, even though we prayed before, or maybe we already had personal revelation prior to that, that we should pray about it again. And you're not going to believe how much backlash I got from people that were upset at me for saying follow the prophet.
Yeah.
How do you guys feel about that?
Who should we have go first?
I'm passionate on this subject, but I've also spoken a lot. I think, Brad Whitbeck, you're the most well-measured of us, and you also probably have the most dissenting opinion. Therefore, let's just lead out the gates with you.
All right.
Well, yes, but Cardin's rant will end with boomers are bad. So just so you know, it's going to end with the same thing, how much he hates boomers.
No, actually, for me, I'll make it fast and simple.
Mm-hmm.
To me, this is the ultimate rehearsal in what our church actually believes its relationship between the prophet and its membership is. Brigham Young said, "We've never required blind obedience." Okay, full stop, documented fact. We do not require blind obedience, nor do we believe in papal infallibility. But we also believe the prophet is the prophet. And as our friend Jim Bennett said, the Catholic bishop he talked to had a joke that Catholics are the only faith that say their leader is infallible and none of the members believe it. And Mormonism is the only faith where the religion says their leaders are fallible and the members don't believe it. Okay. So people don't realize the prophet is the prophet. The first presidency is the first presidency. They've said their statement. We need to go home and pray about it, seek revelation from the Lord, and know whether or not it is true. That's also why it requires the sustaining of the entire membership of the church before they call a stake president. They don't just say, God told us so, it's all good. No. We're all required to sustain this individual and to go home and pray about it and seek the Lord in personal prayer. So it's not a big surprise to me that a top-down, not mandate, but a top-down proclamation came and a bunch of people, before praying about it and seeking their own personal revelation to confirm or deny the truthfulness thereof, made a knee-jerk political decision first.
Yeah.
Okay. And I wish we would have prayed about a lot of the priesthood restrictions in the 70s, because Mormons, especially post-war boomer Mormons, here it comes, Kwaku, being the wealthiest generation on earth, got so used to Mormonism on rich suburban autopilot, they started substituting listen to the prophet and then seek personal revelation with just, follow the prophet. He said something, I'm good. And you know what? We're all fine here right now. And church basketball's on Thursday. And I got to get ready for my lesson and my Post-it notes. So we're good. He said something. We're done.
So Suburbia made that kind of, Suburbia invented that follow the prophet blindly kind of thing. Is that what you're saying?
More out of like convenience than anything, right? Where people are just trying to continue on autopilot and make things easier. You just follow the prophet without thinking about it. Now, my opinion on this is I think that it was the right thing for the first presidency to do. I'm not as positive about the timing on it.
Okay, I'm cutting your feed, dog. No, I'm just kidding.
We have like I wonder personally why they didn't say something like this sooner, right? So that we didn't have a long period of time leading up to now where people would have a long time to form an opinion that they became very married to and then got told something different than what they expected, right? So I have like reservations about that, but I see nothing wrong with the first presidency urging us to get the vaccination in order to protect our neighbors, right? I think that there's something to be said for the way that they tell us to approach it too, that they want us to be getting vaccinated not because we're afraid that we're going to get sick, but because they want us to get vaccinated so that we can protect our neighbors, so that we can love our neighbor and keep them from getting sick. And
right.
to do
this proclamation was for the whole world. It
Yeah.
wasn't just for Idaho or Utah Saints.
No,
or
let's get honest. It was
California
for the
Saints.
Washington Post and the New York Times editorial pages.
Nah.
But no,
Well, and at the end, of the proclamation, I don't know. Would you call it a proclamation? I don't know, announcement, whatever.
Yeah, announcement, I
Announcement.
think, is the most appropriate
Right.
thing, yeah.
It was individuals are responsible to make their own decisions about, let's just say, the jab. In making that determination, we recommend that where possible, they counsel with a competent medical professional about their personal circumstances and needs. So the last part of the first presidency statement pretty much still says it's up to you. It's up to you to make this decision, but we urge you to do it.
Yeah.
And
And I think
I don't know. We don't know why.
Yeah, and I
Maybe
personally
it's to keep the temples open. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just personally think that we ought to weigh the first presidency urging us to do something pretty heavily in our own minds as we pray to know for ourselves what to do, right? That's where I'm at with it.
And Brad, that
Right.
makes sense. And that being said, I ain't getting the jab. I'm not doing it. And here, look, here, I sustain President Nelson as a prophet. Does that mean I follow every rule perfectly? Heaven knows I don't. This is one rule I'm willing
No.
to follow. Not.
And that's
Okay?
a good point.
And it's the thing. This idea that
I don't know. I don't know that I like that though, because that
dude, if Utah came down and said to throw your parties and to get a permit, you had to get the jab, I think you'd get the jab.
the only jab that we'd be getting is the jab of my sword leading people into the battle. Okay.
oh my gosh. No,
Oh,
so
he means figuratively. He wasn't talking about Civil War rapiers like the movie Glory. He was being figurative.
oh my gosh.
Wait,
so
I know,
with what you just said though, you're saying I sustain the prophet, but I am going to disobey on this. How is that any different from a progmo person saying I sustain the prophet, but the family proclamation isn't doctrine?
Because
He's not trying to end
One
the
isn't-
existence of the church.
one relies upon the new and everlasting covenant. The other relies on Fauci.
I don't know that this one relies on Fauci. I think that the vaccine that we're talking about.
I'm trying to maintain my collectivity because I don't want to be seen like a crazy conspiracy theorist. And Brad knows that I can go to a 10 very fast, but I'm trying to not look crazy.
Well, and this is what I worry about as a society just at large. Once again, the
But I have
1990s
to-
liberal is
I have
coming
to-
out of me.
Well, I've got to finish my point first.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
My point is,
Oh, your wife's bringing the groceries home, bro. You better make sure she feels welcome in the conversation.
Yeah.
no,
No, she's just. Oh, it's Taco Bell.
Oh yeah.
so here,
Don't worry, I'll edit this part.
no problem. So my thought is this: when you had people openly saying, "Okay, Dallin H. Chokes is a jerk," Family Proclamation's not even true revelation, and people were saying, "Why aren't you following that?" And they say, "It's not true revelation." And then you've got a lot of liberal members when the conservative members like, "I'm not getting the vaccine." They're like, "Well, why don't you follow the prophet?" You know. Human beings are sentient beings that will make a choice in their life and that decide, I'm going to be a member of this church. I'm going to donate my time and my money and my emotional and mental energy to it. But you know what? There's going to be a couple things I'm going to decide, no, just cannot do. Okay. And both sides will try to wager against each other and go, well, you're not really and the people who've openly said Delanate Choke should be hit by a car. I'm looking at you, Jacqueline Foster. Then say, well, you're not really a Mormon if you don't get the vaccine. I'm just sick of it. We all know that we break some rules, okay? Let's just be real for 1 minute. Let's be real for 1 minute.
Yeah.
We're people. This is how people work. So,
well, just like food storage. I mean, how many of us have a year's supply of food? The prophet says they've been saying it for 70 years.
Right?
Then now they chastise you for being a prepper if you do it. So, I mean...
my
not
thought
if you have food storage, Carden. It's it's a different issue than
my
that.
thought is this. If people were coming to charge against the temple to destroy it, I would be one of those people standing in guard to defend the temple. Okay? I would take a bullet for Joseph Smith. I will believe in the Book of Mormon and defend it till the day I die. I do not want to get the vaccine because I have a lack of trust in the way the COVID narrative was started. I have a lack of trust in those people who have pushed the vaccine to us. I've looked at too much of it and I've decided this seems too shady. I will not give into it, and most black people don't like vaccines. It's just probably in my DNA, okay? So I'm just not going to do it. And if someone says, you're a bad Mormon, I say, I don't care what you think. There it is.
Yeah,
and to be clear, I don't think people who are refusing to take the vaccine are bad Mormons.
I know, we know.
Yeah.
Everyone knows you're Brad. Nobody thinks that you.
You
are
ever
King
judged
Benjamin's
anybody.
son in the Book of Mormon videos. We all know that you're on the good side.
Yeah.
But
Hopefully.
that's
Trying.
I'm in between Kwaku and Brad. I'm a mixture of the both. I trust modern medicine. I am taking chemotherapy right now as we speak. Okay. My daughter, her life was saved through a whole lot of prayer, a lot of priesthood blessings, and modern medicine. I lived for a year in Children's Hospital of Los Angeles. I've held her when she has stopped breathing and been brought back through modern technology, expertise, and know-how. Okay? So I trust science can do amazing miracles in this world, okay? But the 1990s political liberal in me and just the open-hearted, loving Christian in me cannot stand governmental coercion. We do not coerce our members into obeying the ordinances and precepts of our faith, because if we did, they wouldn't be believers. They would be followers.
Yeah.
And we would be more like Satan in the pre-existence than Jesus Christ in the pre-existence. And I can't stand governmental coercion. And the liberal in me always wants to make space for the conscientious objector. We did not make Cassius Clay go to war in Vietnam because he was a conscientious objector. We let him change his name as a society to Muhammad Ali, adopt the principles of the Nation of Islam, and then make a career out of going on TV and saying the U.S. government is corrupt, it's racist, and the war in Vietnam is a great evil of our generation. We don't force the conscientious objecting Amish to go to war and become infantrymen in a war in Afghanistan against the Taliban. They are religious and conscientious objectors. And if we've always made space for these people, liberals always want to talk about making space. I always get the calls from my liberal friends when they say that, oh, I heard you did something really mean online. Is there space for us blankety blanks at church? Yes, of course there's space. We're the most spacious church out there.
Great and spacious.
Yeah, the only undiverse thing in the bloggernacle is white suburban ex-Mormonism. You know what I'm saying? John DeLynn hasn't interviewed a person of color in like 6 months. Okay. Yeah. On the daily, the Ensign is dumping articles, you know what I'm saying? About churches that have sprung up all over the world, believing in this beautiful idea that they're all mutual children of God that are co-participants in his glory. Okay. So I am all against the governmental coercion. That's the only thing I care about. We give freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, freedom of press, freedom of all of the associated beliefs that come with it, and you can't coerce people, or else you are no different than Satan was in the pre-existence.
Woo!
Yeah.
And, well, you guys see what's going on in Australia and New Zealand, and that's horrible.
Yeah, I can't
I mean,
fly
talk
editors
about
over for
coercion.
movies because they're trapped there.
Yeah. Those
Yeah,
are some
it's
freaky
bad.
videos.
Well, I mean, we were taught crazy times are coming.
Are you suggesting the secular society that's locking down its own citizens might be committing human rights violations in the future if we cede them enough power?
You mean in the present?
Oh, yeah. And that possibly if that same society all of a sudden turned against vulnerable minorities, such as African Americans or LGBTQ people, that maybe there might be bloodshed in the streets at the hands of the government? Oh, wait, no. That sounds like the entire 20th century.
Well, as somebody who's woke and liberal, let me tell you something. The government would never do anything to harm me. That's what a lot of these girls sound like online.
That's why we should give all the guns to the police and defund them.
And if we really love them,
Like,
and we
wait a second.
if we really were liberal, I produce a show with a bunch of they self-identify as black conservatives. Okay, like I think they call themselves the response to the Breakfast Club, the conservative response to the Breakfast Club. Right? They're three black conservative guys. They're totally awesome. They're quickly becoming some of my best friends that I've ever had in my life. Right? And I got to tell you, I 100% believe after that syphilis study, why the biggest cross section in America.
Of course I'm not getting the vaccine! They gave all my people syphilis! What, am I crazy?
If you want to start vilifying, the unjabbed, you quickly find yourself vilifying predominantly racial black and Hispanic groups who have a history of being abused medically at the hands of the U.S. government. So if they don't trust you...
The Tuskegee syphilis experiment, Google it. This is not a conspiracy theory. This happened. It's the reason why my mother never had me or any of my siblings vaccinated. Because in her lifetime, she saw black people get syphilis and get incredibly sick because the government literally injected them with it.
No, they had it and they gave them a placebo saying it was a vaccine when it wasn't really a vaccine, which is one of the most unethical things ever perpetrated upon a population as a widespread medical experiment. So why would you want to participate in the widespread medical experiment of this jab? Okay, now great. I'm glad it's got FDA approvals, all that other stuff. The more studies that are done on it, the more comfortable I feel every day with it. Fine, that's great. Okay, but at the end of the day, you can't call yourself somebody who cares about vulnerable minorities, like the Musket comments with Elder Holland, and then not give that exact same comfort, care, and concern to vulnerable minorities who do not trust medical experimentation. Okay? So this is once again where I say, as long as you're intellectually honest, you have a place at the table with my and we can have a conversation. But when you start saying my way on this and then your way on that, now it's just chaos, and we're descending into chaos.
And back to your point with it, Troy. Sorry.
No, that's fine.
I think that one of the reasons that the First Presidency has issued their statement is to help people recognize that it is a viable option. Because I think there's a lot of information out there trying to make people think that, oh, hey, it's worse than it could be. Like there are people who misunderstood the way that the testing of the vaccine happened, right? Thinking that like it was an untested one when really they changed the schedule in a way that they were able to test it more quickly, but they didn't make the process any less effective of a testing. Like I think it's there to help balance out some of this information that's bad information sometimes people are getting.
Well, guys, I have a girl who is very sad and wants me to FaceTime her. Can we I have to wrap this up.
Let's wrap.
I have to be a good partner.
Yeah. This has
thing.
been great, guys. I really appreciate your input.
We're crazy. Okay, so we're crazy.
No, I'm not crazy enough. Sorry about that.
It's all good. We're all different kinds of crazy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
No, you guys aren't crazy at all. This has been good, awesome, intellectual fun.
Awesome.
And I learned a lot. Thank you so much for being with us, and you guys take care.
All right, see ya, my man.
See ya.
Thanks,
All
Troy.
right.
All right, that's a cut.